I love
Start this
that.
recording.
Um, where's everyone at?
I don't know.
I
We got a
fucking
few people here though. I mean, we're gonna break it down, man. Let's break it
gonna
down.
break it down. We're gonna get Percy's
Yeah.
sauce for sure. I'll do a post in the group, get some more people in here, and then you guys can get rocking and rolling.
Well, there's a couple people popping in. We might as well just start it now. Let me I want to find that post. I had it up and I think I put it out. Um, but yeah, let's start it out. So, okay, welcome to the DataSift Mastermind, biweekly mastermind for this is the first one for 2026, January 6th. And we're going to start it off with a user win, a huge user win from Percy. I don't have a single clue how to pronounce his last name. I'm not going to try, but Percy's been around quite a while. He's always posted wins throughout the communities, the lifeline of the community. And this is a big one. This is a six-figure wholesale portfolio deal that took 274 days, I believe, is what he said. So from there, Percy, give us the cliff notes a little bit, and then we'll dive in where we see fit. What was the deal? Where did it come from? How did you get in touch with it? And what did that 274-day process kind of look like?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you all for having me. So I actually have to break down. I had my EA kind of work out a report on that particular transaction, but essentially the 274 days came from initial contact all the way to closing. We to kind of backtrack. This the first record for this particular portfolio was uploaded into SIFT in 2022, September 2nd, 2022. So since we pull in from different, different type of marketing channels and records, so we add different records into different lists. So it kind of kept piling up over the years. And we ran a campaign in the beginning of 2025. And this one came from the five stack absentee out of state. So that's the niche that we ran for for this particular record. We ran that in, if I'm not mistaken, it was in the beginning of 2025, and our initial contact happened in February 19th of 2025.
Okay.
Um, from February 19th of 2025 to I believe August 11th, we've been following up with this person. So throughout that, those months, basically the way that it went and the way that a timeline went is that when we got in contact with the owner, he was only interested in selling one property, but he was trying to sell that property for a lot higher than, what the appraisal value was. So I'm located in Dallas, Texas. This particular portfolio was located in Paris, Texas, which is for us is a tertiary market. It's a very small town, probably less than 100,000 people. So very, very rural. And the, I guess the one unique thing about this is that I've been investing on and off in this particular town since 2018. So that's how I kind of knew about it. Been doing deals there for quite some time, and we were pulling in records, for that particular area, just because we've been doing, transactions there. So in this particular instance, when we got in contact with them on February of 2025, he was just asking for too much. He was only trying to sell for, just one property. So since we're able to get a correct number, we were able to, pinpoint the right owner. We kind of put him into our follow-up sequence. and we were following up every single month. So my prospector lead manager was following up until we finally got to him on August 11th, where he just said, you know what, I'm trying to sell my portfolio. Um, but then from August 11th to September 4th, we were trying to get um, the addresses for these properties. So we were following up every single day. He, he was ghosting us, but because we were we were following up every single day, he finally gave up and said, you know what, this is, he texted us all the addresses, and then that's when my lead manager got in touch with him on September 4th. um she was able to get price, addresses, rent, because most of them were tenant occupied. And then on September 4th, she basically sent it over to me for acquisitions. And I didn't get to him. I remember I was out of the country at that point in time, and I didn't get to him until, if I'm not mistaken, until the 26th of September. And that's when we put it on the contract. Um, and the way that I went about it is honestly very simple on my end. I know a lot of people like to look at NOI, capex, what the expenses are for each particular property. So on my end, honestly, it was very simple. I just asked how much money he was making a month in rent, and what I did is I just divided that by 2%. Um, and instead of doing the 1% rule, I did a 2% rule. So I kind of broke that down by probably 40-50% of ARV. And based on the monthly income that was coming in, I knew an investor will pick it up at least 1.5%. So he went from 450, which equal about 55K per property, and I brought him down to, my initial offer was 340. We settled at 360. So that's about 40K per property. And I knew that was gonna be a win just because I knew the area, and two, just kind of going off of the gross income, which was about, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 6,000, 6 to 7,000 of gross income on a monthly basis from all those properties. So I kind of knew that someone an investor will pick this up, probably at a 1.5%, with a little bit of rehab, coming into that. So the original plan was a 9 property portfolio. That's what we put on the contract. We put it on the contract for 360, and then that same day, I kind of knew already certain investors that would only invest in this particular market. So all I did is I just I reached out to them, got on a call with them, told them that, hey, I have this portfolio, this is what it's making. Um, Honestly, most of them are within two blocks away from each other, so it's one central location for to maintain it. And just based on that, what I did is I put it up to 450. Um, so initially, we were only gonna make 90,000. And once we put it on the contract, because this was out of county title, we didn't get a title report back until probably 37 days after we submitted contract over to title company. Um, one of the things that I've been battling with this particular market is that we could have used a local title company, which would have been, much easier, much quicker. But all of the title companies in this particular city or town, they don't allow assignments. And also, they don't do pass-throughs. So you could definitely double close it, but you will have to bring the money to the table to purchase the front end before, your buyer buys the B2C contract.
Sure.
So that's one of the reasons why we decided to go with a title company in the area, because they did assignments, that they pass throughs. So that way I don't have to bring money to the table. But all of that took about 37 days for all those 9 properties to get title report back. So that's kind of what it boiled down to. From contract to closing, it was about 78 days. So we put it on the contract September, closed on November 20th. Um, the biggest struggle on this was finding a lender, right? Um, so to answer JD's question, pass-throughs mean the title company is basically able to use the funds from the buyer to fund the A and B and the B and C side, but they both have to close literally within 24 hours of of the transaction. So that's what pass-throughs mean. And certain title companies are able to do that, which is again key on knowing who you work with and the type of underwriting that you're working with as well. So kind of the buyer was interested. He had other rentals free and cleared. He just didn't have the full 450,000 just laying around for him. So the biggest piece was linking him with the lender that could understand and see the vision of the particular properties that we were trying to sell. Um, Now, as you guys may know, a majority of hard money lenders only deal in metroplexes. They rarely go out to small towns, rural areas. So it was like I was basically working every single day trying to connect with hard money lenders, pitch, the portfolio to them, pitch the package to them. Until I finally reached back out to one of my contacts way back when. And I told him the situation. He usually invests in rural areas, but he told me that he didn't have the funds at the moment. That he would only do it, but it would have to go through his white glove company. Um, so I say, you know what? Let's do it. As long as you're able to, make this happen and fund it and whatever, we were able, we decided to kind of go along with that. I think that was the biggest mistake probably did in this transaction. Just to kind of go off of that. Because when you go with a white glove company, is essentially you're essentially not dealing directly with the lender. You're dealing with the servicing company, and that servicing company is basically gathering the requirements and then putting their own requirements onto the lender. So when we pitched it to the new company, uh, they basically required us to do an appraisal, surveys, and inspections. And all of that basically had to come from the buyer side, the front money. And because these were like outside of the county limits, each survey was about probably $1,100, $1,200 per property. Inspections were about $500 per property. So I right then and there, in my mind, I was like, you know what, I knew I shouldn't have gone with it. It's going to create such a cumbersome transaction. But I pitched it to the buyer. I actually navigated the whole process for the buyer because one, the buyer didn't speak English, um, and then two, he never dealt with a harmony lender. So I was basically acting as the buyer on this side, right? So we were, I was kind of navigating all these different, moving parts with the seller, with the tenants, with the buyer, with the harmony lender, inspectors, surveyors, title company. And so we didn't get title report back 37 days after contract. From that 37 days, we started working on the appraisals, the surveys, the inspections. At first, I'm sorry, the hard money lender was trying to charge the buyer as cash to close after, giving them the term sheet, right? They were trying to give, basically letting him know that he had to bring about 60 to $70,000 cash to close. So, we went back again, started, negotiating and letting them know, hey, look, if you look at the comps, there's these properties at about 40 to 50% ARV. If you're lending at 70%, you should at least give them, you know, uh, you shouldn't ask for a deposit or a down payment. Um, so what we did in this scenario is that what we were able to do is that we were able to roll in the closing costs to the loan, and the buyer will just have to bring, a small percentage to the table. And that went from 60 to 70K to about 35,000, give or take, cash to close, which was doable. So buyer was happy. We were all tracking along, hoping that, navigating all these different front end costs. Um, and then right in the middle of that process, the title company tells us that one of the properties had was done through a quick claim deed. There was never, title insurance on it. There was a lot of probate situation going on. We basically had to find the previous owner. The previous owners were deceased. Um, Family members didn't know where exactly the other family members were. So it was a whole ordeal that we had to navigate. And thankfully, I think this was a blessing in disguise. We actually got another contract from a different person, different owner in the same neighborhood. And I pitched it to the buyer. I say, hey, look, I can swap this out. We can drop this other property that has title issues. This one is all ready to go, but it's gonna be a fix and flip for you. It's not gonna be a buy and hold, and we can roll this into the loan, so that way it can all be one big transaction. Buyer was ready. So now the biggest thing was swapping it with the original lender, in order to drop that property that had,
Okay,
title
so
issue.
you removed one and added this new one.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you know about this ability to do that prior, or did you have to like work on your heels to realize you could do that? I
Honestly,
hadn't heard of that.
it was uh it was an instant response for me.
You knew you could do that?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, cool.
So as soon as I was able to we could have navigated that title issue problem, but we wouldn't have given them the 50,000 or the 40,000 that he was asking for. It would have been like, we would have bought out the deed at that point and then just navigate that process on our back end. But that's just like kind of like a different side of our business that we do. But in this scenario, I didn't want to give that problem property to the buyer. I would have just, picked it up myself. But because the biggest thing on that was that if we would have dropped that ninth property, we would have dropped our fee by 40,000.
Mhm.
Because it was, we would have to like negotiate and things like that. So our assignment fee would have gone down from 90,000 to I don't know what, right? So what I did is that, and this was just like an instant response for me, is that since we dropped the ninth property and there was another property that we had, that was ready to go, we could have enrolled into the loan. Um, Basically, what I did is I went back to the seller, told him, hey, this property was what actually one of the nicest property in that portfolio. Um, if we're gonna buy the other eight, then I need a drop about 50,000. So instead of dropping it 40,000, which was the original purchase price for per property, I negotiated with the seller and told him, hey, I'm only gonna give you, I'm gonna drop it 50,000, right? And then I went back to the buyer and I told him, hey, this property is actually one of the worst ones in the portfolio. Um, Instead of dropping it 50,000, which is what I sold it to you, I'm gonna drop it 40,000. So instead of making 90 at that point, I was making 100. So I went up, I went up my assignment fee by 10,000. Um, so when that happened, I kind of made that transition, and then um, because I was at that point, he was only buying 8 properties, and I assigned the ninth one instead of doing a double close. I assigned it to him, and I was making, I think my assignment fee was like 7 or 8 thousand. Um, so all in all, after closing costs, uh, our net cash, I think I have it over here. Um, but our net profit was about 105,696. So it's about 105,000, 105,000. That was our net cash to us at the end of the transaction. But so we navigated all through that. We were supposed to close on November 5th. Everything was supposedly going well. We sent, the lender has sent over their inspector, the appraisers. But one of the biggest things that I was able to also do is that I was able to make a connection with the actual appraiser. And the appraiser was the one that mentioned that he loved working with investors instead of working for mortgage companies or financial institutions. So he straight up came up to me and said, "Hey man, I want to make this work for you. So what are your comps? Like where is your ARV coming from?" Um, and so I told him, "Hey, look, in order for this loan to work, the ARVs have to be these numbers, right?" Um, and long and behold, he went did the appraisals, and the appraisals came back at those numbers. So, uh, the lender was good to go. In our rehab budgets, right? The buyer, because he does all his things on his own, he didn't he wasn't budgeting for paying a contract or anything like that. So what he was budgeting for is about 20,000 per property in rehab, and probably 3 out of these 8 probably had a lot of work that needed to be done. But because he was doing it on his, by himself, he had a crew. It was easier for him. So um, we were supposed to close November 5th. Following up with the lenders, I'm trying to get a feel of what's going on. And then they would throw out different wordings of, well, we still have to wait for the inspections. We're talking to the board of directors to see if, you know, to make sure that this will make sense because it's out of town, it's an out of county portfolio. So at that point, I was getting feelings of, oh my God, this is probably not gonna close. Like I need to prepare for this. And long and behold, the November 5th came. We're supposed to close. I get on a call with the servicing company, and they said, you know what, our inspector came out. He doesn't agree with the budget. He thinks that instead of 20K, it's gonna take 60,000. So now the cash to close went from 35 to 100 and something for the buyer. Um, so at that point, I talked to the buyer. He said, "There's no way I'm gonna make that happen. There's no way that's gonna work for me." So now I'm getting calls from the seller because now it's been 2 months already. And then I have to navigate the buyer, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna lose this money. I did all this work." And at that point in time, I was like, you know what? I just gotta, I gotta get back to work. I gotta go into my connects, start reaching back out to other people, post on groups, start pitching the deal again. I think the biggest thing that I was able to acquire from that is that we already had appraisals in place of how, of what these properties were going to be worth. So, so what I did is essentially, um, give me a second, sorry. So what I did is essentially just kind of go back and pitch it to a lot of lenders. And there was this one particular lender that I used to work with, that he was basically, he wasn't an institutional lender. He was lending out of his own money. Um, so I pitched it to them. I said, look, we already have appraisal, we have surveys, um, everything is there. And one of the biggest things is that for one property, one of the properties in that portfolio, the appraisal report came back at 230,000 just for one property. We were selling the package, we were selling it for about 50K per property. So that right there was an insane deal, insane equity. Not only for the buyer, but also letting the lender know, hey, look, even if this person doesn't, doesn't fulfill their agreement on paying you, you have appraisal reports. You can make your money back and more. Um, and what I was able to pitch it to him was that, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't you get a collateral from the buyer, and then that way you also have another peace of mind that instead of you picking up 9 properties, now you're picking up 10, all free and clear.
Sure.
So I pitched it to the buyer, and I told him, hey, look, instead of you bringing money to the table, and you're gonna pay these off because you're gonna refinance eventually, just put one of your properties as collateral, and that would work as you paying off the closing costs. So this happened on November 5th. November 6th, we made contact with the second lender. And then November 17th, no, yeah, November 17th was when he finally agreed. So, in literally in those 2 weeks, I was like, I couldn't go to sleep. I was like trying to see how to solve the situation, how to solve the problem, what creative ways I could do to like make it happen. Crazy enough, uh, on November 16th, I had a call with because I was basically ghosting the seller at this point. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I just gotta grab the bull by the horns, and then just 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 be real with him and talk to him. I told him, hey, look, I'll have an answer to you by tomorrow. If it's a yay or a nay, I don't want to hold up to you. I know you got to sell these properties. So at that point, I was ready to let go if things didn't work out. Um, I'm a believer, so that same night I just kind of prayed and I said, God, whatever you wanted to happen, it's in your hands. And then the next day, literally I got a call with the second lender, showed him the reports, showed him that we had everything ready. And then he spoke with the buyer. The buyer was, agreed to put one of his properties as collateral. Then the second lender called me back and said, "Hey, the buyer agreed to do this," and I was like, "That's awesome. Where are we then? Like, what's the next step?" And well, he said, "Well, I'm ready to close tomorrow if you wanted to." I was like, "Sounds great.
Word.
Let me work it out." So yeah, at that point, I dropped everything. I was like, I started getting a phone call with the title company. Uh, called the seller and told him, hey, look, everything went well. We're just tying up financing and kind of balancing out numbers. And yeah, November 17th, we signed paperwork and we didn't get funded until the 20th, which was a Monday. Uh, And that's how everything happened.
Okay, that's a journey. So I got a few questions that popped up. If anyone has any other questions prior and they want to ask, feel free. Just gonna take a sec here. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Was it worth it?
Absolutely.
It was
100%.
worth it?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I need to know. Okay, it was worth it. Okay. What could you have done better?
Uh, I would say networking with uh other professionals in the industry. And by that I mean lenders, right? Even other investors. Because let's say if this buyer, you know, didn't qualify, if I didn't have other options, I would have probably lost that deal. Um,
Yep.
so getting out there and giving yourself a lot more leverage on the dispo side, and also connecting your buyers with your lenders that have a better process on these type of properties or on these type of markets.
So would getting to your buyers earlier fall into that? That's a real question. I'm genuinely curious. Could you have gotten
Um,
there earlier?
I think I think me placing trust in that first buyer that it was gonna happen probably played a little bit of a role, because I could have just gone out and like market the portfolio to other investors, instead of just relying to that particular buyer. Um, because again, if this buyer wasn't able to make it happen, or like the lender wasn't able to qualify him, then that deal would have probably fallen through.
And I mean, listening to that journey of like the things that went right and then all of a sudden another thing goes wrong, for me personally, my instinct would be like, dude, I gotta run. But like you said, obviously, your faith played a part in it. But how do you like what does your day-to-day look like when you got high pressure stuff like that on the table? How do you like literally deal with that? Because I'd imagine the stress of a portfolio, just the thought of it probably keeps people from ever even attempting to go for a portfolio. They might get a portfolio on their table and be
Yeah,
like, nah.
yeah,
Like for you, maybe you've done a few and you've had some experience, but like managing the people and the stress of seller, the stress of buyer, and the stress of who's going to manage the money for me, like who's going to pass this along, like how
yeah.
do you deal with that?
Good question. um, Honestly, I thrive in these situations.
Okay.
And by that I mean, I work well and best out of myself when I'm in a high pressure situation.
Okay.
Um, so when my back is against the wall is when the more creative that I become. And it's because it's sink or swim, right? It's either I fight till I live, or this is the end for me. So, with that situation again comes experience as well. I know if I would have had this in 2018, I would have just let it go. Um, I
Why?
wouldn't have dealt with it. One, because like you said, right, it's the high pressure stuff. I wouldn't know how to handle it. Um, but because I've been doing this for years, and like I've done I've been in situations like that. my mindset have has become a lot more a lot more flexible in the outcomes, but also a lot of determination on making things happen.
Is there different qualities and characteristics to succeeding with portfolios than there is with just one-off wholesales? Or is it skills that you've gained from wholesaling that mold over time? Like someone that's at zero, do they need to learn new skills to, or obviously you learn it through baptism by fire, but is there a skill gap?
Um, I think there's a little bit of both. I think that like as an operator, you can be a salesperson, but you can't but sometimes you can't really be an integrator, right? So um some people are easier to make a contract happen, but how do you navigate through that? How do you take it from, from A to B or A to C? Um Also, there's that creative mindset, and by creative mindset I mean coming up with different options and solutions to the problem. A lot of people just have a tunnel vision when it comes to that, or they don't really have the experience, or they don't want to venture out of their comfort zone. um, so there's a lot of things that will play into part. I wouldn't say that a new person, would be able to or can't do it. I think everyone is capable of doing it. I think that is that mindset piece of I can make it happen. I am capable of making it happen. Because all it was for this type of scenario is really connecting the dots, right? Connecting the right people to the right transaction. Um, but also, I think it also comes with, again, the knowledge and experience of dealing with problem properties. Um, I know a lot of people wouldn't have thought of, hey, let's take this one out and let's put another one in from a different owner into the same loan. Let's wrap that loan around and then package it all in together. Like I know a lot of people wouldn't have thought of that.
Like,
So it really comes with the experience of dealing with trial and error, but also being yourself, putting yourself in that mindset of, yeah, I'm gonna make it happen one way or another.
yeah. It to me, it's something that's just as interesting is being able to stay confident when you feel the pain, pressure, and frustration of the seller. And then you got to deal with the BS of the middleman with the money, but then you got to like deal with the pain, pressure, and frustration from buyer. And then
Yeah.
just like you just got to like stay in the middle and be like, we got this. Like we got this. To me, that's very interesting. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I it was a lot of moving parts. It's one of, for one, it was the fact that you had to schedule multiple people to go into these houses without disrupting the trust from the seller of, hey, why are these different people, looking at my properties? Why, there's a buyer, there's an inspector, there's an appraiser, there's a surveyor, another inspector has to come in, like, in navigating through that. But it also comes with the skill set of being able to build rapport with your seller, um, and with your buyer, right? Because
and your appraiser.
yeah, and my appraiser, exactly. So, and I think I could say on my end that one of the skill sets that I have is that I'm very I listen to keywords in people. So I'm an introvert extrovert type of person, and when I talk to someone, I listen to certain keywords, and it's not like I use it against them, but I use those keywords in our conversation. And like, for example, when the appraiser said, hey, I love working with investors, um, what is your number so I can make this work? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm connecting the dots, right? I'm gonna give you my number because you say you're gonna make it work if I give you my number. So situations like that, I was able to kind of manage it. Um, Crazy enough, in between this particular transaction, I was actually um, I was out of the country. Like I wasn't even in the States. So I was trying to manage everything from overseas, and that was also a job in itself. Just trying to make things work.
Um, yeah, I'm sure that had its own challenges. So, okay, so we know what you feel like you might have done or could have done better. Um, it was worth it. Um, Something that I noticed right away, and if Tyler's still listening, I'm sure he's freaking like doing this, is your timelines. You have your timeline dialed in. Um, does your message board or does your activity log just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll on this deal? Yeah,
Yeah, I actually I think she's probably in here, but my EA was the one that worked on this report. Um,
hats off to
and
her or him or
yeah,
her. That was
yeah,
awesome.
no, she yeah, I sometimes I'm very demanding when it comes to that, but she's the one that's making my life easier. But she worked on this report. Looking at this report right now, it's about I think 11 pages.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I basically told her that I wanted to know exactly when was the uploaded date, uh, what marketing channel it came from, what when was the initial touch, um, and why didn't from the initial touch until conversion, which is when it's assigned to me, why didn't it happen? Like why did we, what was that gap? And we worked on it for a few days, and it was basically that, when we're listening to the calls, is that he was only trying to sell back in beginning of 2025, is he was only trying to sell one property, and he was asking 70,000 for one property. So we knew it was going to be a cold lead, and we had to follow up. It was just at that point, it was just timing. It was like we just needed to get you on the right time. And February all the way till August is when he texted us saying, "Hey, I want to sell my properties." And so it's like water and rice. My lead manager was following up every single day until we finally got a response. Once we got a list of the properties, she assigned it over to me. I looked at it, and then that's when I started, going to work.
That daily follow up, for some reason, it makes me feel like anxious thinking about calling that dude every day. Was it he just wasn't answering? Or was
He
he like answering and like, no, I don't want to sell today. Like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow.
I think it was a little bit of both. Well, he's an older man. He's about 80 years old. Um and I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was just him dealing with whatever he was dealing with at that point in time. He just wasn't really giving this a priority. Um but I tell my lead manager, look, if someone says they're interested in selling, you have to follow up every single day. By any mean possible, we have to get him on the phone.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what she did until he finally was able to respond. And I think when that happened, when I spoke to him, was that he was going through um that final stage in his life. His
Yep.
dad was not going through a good health, and he just wanted to spend it with him. He wanted
Mhm.
to go out of the town that he was in, and spend it with him. And dealing with, I mean, as a landlord myself, dealing with tenants and properties, at that age, I mean, that's not a priority to you when your father is, laying in
Hmm.
bed and probably on the final stage of his life. So you want to spend it with family. So, and I think I was like kind of able to get him at that point in life and give him the money that he essentially was needing to make that happen on his end.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it's I always say this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that are here will probably agree with me, is that the money's in the follow up. That's where you make all your money. I mean, yes, sometimes you get your one offs where you get a one touch close, but majority of the time, is you following up with these people. And I mean, I followed up with this person since 2022.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time.
Hmm. It's not like it really, I mean, over the course of 2022 till now, obviously there was effort involved, but to just be able to go into your data and be like, who needs follow up? It wasn't much of a task for you. It's very simple and straightforward, yeah, which is pretty cool. Um, you mentioned, back to that daily follow up. Did that start with this deal, or was that something that snapped with you a while back? It sounded like it started with this deal when you realized, oh shit, there's a portfolio here, like every day.
No, it's actually part of my process
Okay.
when it comes to so the way that my sales process works is that once we get someone interested in selling, it gets sent over to my lead manager.
Yep.
So my lead manager job is to pre-qualify them. So if the number doesn't make sense with what we're looking for, then it gets placed into a cold follow-up. Um, but if the numbers make sense into the threshold that we're looking for, but this person is not responding, their job is to put it on a hot follow-up, and that means following up every single day until you get a response.
Mm.
Um, so it is embedded into our sales process.
But what happens when they get the response? I mean, if it doesn't go anywhere, then what?
So at that point, if you get a response that says, you know what, I'm not interested in selling, or you know what, now, I'm asking, I don't know, I was asking 50,000, but now I'm asking 70,000, then you get placed either on a cold follow-up or you
Sure.
get placed into a not interested
Okay.
bucket. So that's her job, right? To kind
Fair.
of pre-qualify that.
Yep.
But if it's within the range that we're looking for, and we're able to confirm all the details that we need, send it over to me, and I'll, hop on the call and try to make things happen.
Got you. Got you. Here, let's open it up here while we have a few minutes left. Has anyone in the chat here or want to just hop on the call and just start talking? Have any questions about this process? Anything he might have dealt with? I don't know, JD, do you got any questions? Brian, anything popping up for you? Anything you saw or liked? We'd get it
For me,
done.
I just like more of the mindset stuff because yeah, the way that he thinks about it, for me, it'd get me kind of frazzled.
Yeah, it got me frazzled just listening to it.
And I definitely think, you know, I've definitely had deals where you run into one obstacle, no big deal. You move past that obstacle, find a solution. But you were hit with multiple obstacles and multiple sticking points that you were able to solve throughout that process, which ultimately led to your, six-figure wholesale deal. And I think that's huge. There's a lot of time where I look at it and I'm like, man, the amount of time, effort, and energy I have to put into this is not worth the outcome uh, that I expected will get. But you
Yeah.
just kept on finding ways to make more money as it got more complicated and more properties
Yeah.
involved, and ultimately rocked it. So I don't think that I would have pushed that one through just based off of what you've said. I don't think I would have pushed that one through to the finish line, and maybe I should reevaluate some of the deals I have in my pipeline right now.
Where do you think you would have
Absolutely.
hopped out at, JD, when the property needed to be swapped, or
Yeah, definitely when we're talking about swapping properties, and then also, well, getting anytime there's a ton of errors or a ton of people involved in the deal, it just absolutely drives me insane. Um, and it's not that I would have jumped out completely, but I definitely pushed that one to the back burner, which would have been a huge mistake in this instance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think um and I think that's normal. I think that's normal for especially in your if you're in the wholesaling side, for us to kind of push the problem properties, right? Um, I've come to find out that those are the juicier deals if you know how to make them work. Um, because there are properties, and I think there's a few of us in this community, and I can think of like McLean just focuses on, title issues. And these are the properties, like if you get creative when it comes to solving problems, you can definitely make really big money. And just knowing how to navigate and understand also statutes, right? Like understanding contract law or understanding the requirements for each particular um, title issue that may arise. If you know how to solve them, you can definitely negotiate with the seller and let them know, hey, you're never gonna be able to sell this property, but I'll give you a certain amount of money and I'll take on that problem myself. But at that point, of course, I know how to solve it. Um, but yeah, I think it's more of a, in this scenario, I would say more of a mindset, right? To be able to persevere and then be able to like push through the obstacles. At that point it's sink or swim, right? Hey, it's either get $0 or it's make six figures. You got to choose your heart.
You feel like when those obstacles pop up, do you personally feel like you get a sense of excitement?
Yes.
Kind of like, a basic example would be the people you don't get in contact with. It's exciting because you know direct mail is probably going to work. Is it the same kind of thing where it's like just a mental reframe around, yeah, this is going to be stressful, but there is an opportunity here. And if I just keep a clear head, like
Yeah.
this could be very beneficial to me. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, I get excited at the fact that there is opportunity for more money to be made,
Right.
right? Um and like going back, like one of my last flips, I bought it with two memos in place. Um and I know a lot of people would have said, we can't close this. I'm not buying it, or you know what, I have to move on to the next deal. But it was opportunity for me to make more money because I knew how to navigate that. I knew how to get those memos out of title, but the sellers didn't know, right? So, hey, you're never gonna be able to sell these properties, and if so, you gotta pay these people about $10,000 just to release it. So, if you're gonna pay them, why don't you pay me? I'll take on the problem. And now from making maybe 20,000, I just made 40,000. Um, without paying them. Like I knew exactly how to get rid of those memos, right? So I think it's that excitement of how do I solve this issue and how can I make more money?
Yeah. Jasmine did ask, you're just in Dallas, focusing in the Dallas area, right?
So I wholesale all over Texas. My flips are in the Metroplex and my rentals are in secondary, tertiary markets in within my radius in Dallas.
Does that answer your question, Jasmine? Take that as a yes. Awesome. Well, I think, oh, how did you get started in wholesaling? And yes, did answer the question.
Crazy enough, and I think what JD was mentioning, my very first deal actually was sort of like this when it came to a lot of obstacles. So I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from Virginia. My very first deal was in Maryland. Um, and that's when, um, back then, this was what, 2016, 2017. Um, I was doing bandit signs. I was posting on Craigslist. I don't even know if Craigslist exists anymore. Um, but back then I was posting ads everywhere, and I finally uh, was able to get this property on the contract. I remember driving about an hour and a half from home just to look at this property, and everything that could go wrong went wrong on this deal. Honestly, the only money I made was $2,000, and that's because that was the earnest money for my buyer because he backed out. But everything that could go wrong went wrong. The seller wasn't even the owner at that point. There was a lot of like private issues that needed to be solved. At that point in time, I didn't even know what a probate or an affidavit of heirship was. So eh, I think again it goes back to that mindset, right? It's because I could have easily said, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna stick with my corporate job. I don't want to be dealing with this and because it's hard. But I just kept going through, and then eventually paid off.
You see Brian's question pop up?
Middle
He
story eventually.
said, was the removal of the memorandum explained? He said he was selfish and had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, for the flips, you mean? Yeah. So basically, at that point, is understanding your underwriter, right? So I think there's like 7 or 8 different underwriters that a title company goes through, and knowing how to, depending on the underwriter, they have different requirements and statutes. So on the memos, I was able to clear it through 2 different ways. The first one was we got in contact with the first title company, and they never submitted earnest money. So at that point in time, that's the contract is null and void if no earnest money is submitted. So the underwriter was able to dismiss that and get it out of the title report. The second memo, the entity name for that particular company, uh, at that point in time was how do you say it? Not expired, but it was they didn't have the right to transact in the state of Texas. So because they weren't valid, yeah, not in good standing. You're right. And we were able to present that report from the Secretary of State to the underwriter, and once they saw that, they were able to dismiss it. Um, the other way, if you're in Texas, a new law just passed. November, I think it was November 1st. Um, Sorry, it was sometime September. But essentially, the new law states that in order for an investor or someone to place a memo, um, the they have to get a signature from the seller in order to place the memo. And also, the seller is able to dismiss that memo if a memo was placed. But again, not a lot of people know that. It would all depend on the underwriter that you're working with to be able to utilize that statute. Um, there's different ways, right? The memos have to be filed in a certain way, and if you're missing one point in that statute, you can present that to your underwriter, and they're able to dismiss it as well.
Well, we are a little over an hour. My last question for you before we close out would be, It's 2026. What are your goals, intentions for real estate investing this year? What are you hoping to see by the end of the year? What is your company going to look like? How's it going to change? That sort of thing.
Absolutely. We're now transitioning over, and hopefully we transition over into second quarter on this, but we're trying to get into the development side, starting new construction. Also, we're trying to get into land development by doing entitlement. So we're trying to buy, well, not buy per se, but we're trying to acquire land, subdivide it, turn it into paper lots, and then sell paper lots to medium-sized builders. Um, I'm gonna start training to offshore my wholesale company, and by offshore I mean training someone to take over the acquisition role. We already have our systems in place with, all the way through acquisitions. We just need someone to kind of come in and like start focusing on the acquisition, putting properties on the contract so that I can focus on, the development side of things.
That so once you get your acquisitions trained up, you're pretty much full steam ahead on these
Correct.
goals.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Cool.
Yep.
Well, we look forward to seeing posts about it. When you start getting those first land developments or whatever, like we want to see that because even though there's only just a handful of people in here, to see the follow up on that would be really powerful. So when they start coming through, because we want to know about it, man. So
Absolutely.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us grill you and hear the whole story.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, for sure.
Of course, man. We'll get this recording up in Kajabi and probably put it out on YouTube for everyone to watch moving forward. So thanks, dude.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Later, everybody.
All right. Bye.